Hi everybody, Jennifer Blevins-Smith with Integral Clinic Solutions, and you're watching my YouTube channel, Navigating the Business of Medicine. Today I want to talk about medical records retention laws. I'm not sure if you are aware or not, but there are requirements on how long you need to retain medical records, including billing records for patients. This is regulated by your state, but it's also regulated by CMS. So you might have multiple different timeframes in which you need to retain records. I do know that medical records for CMS or Medicare patients has to be retained for at least 7 years. That's what the requirements are right now. Every state is different and different age groups might have different time frames as well. So it's really important that you look into the retainment time frames that are required by law in your state for how long you have to retain those medical records and billing records in order to provide them to commercial insurances, Medicare, Medicaid, TRICARE, if they were to come back retro and request anything from dates of service. Now, I can't remember exactly what the jurisdiction time frame is on how far back or what time frame, I guess you can say, that insurances are allowed to go back and ask for this stuff. Every state, I believe, has different allowable time frames, so you would have to also find out what is kind of the statute of limitations in your area for your state that insurances can go back and ask for retro information on patients. But I would also look on the CMS website, TRICARE website, Medicaid website. Most likely Medicaid is probably going to follow your state requirements, but I would definitely check out your contracts for your commercial payers as well. It will probably say in there that they can go back as far as 2 years or 1.5 years from dates of service for patients. You want to make sure you know this, because if an insurance company is asking for information further back than what is in the contract or what your state allows, then you don't have to do that, and you can respond and say, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but in my state you can only go back this far or ask for this far, and then see what they say. The thing about age groups is that, of course, Medicare insured patients are going to have that 7-year requirement, but you might have to have certain requirements specific for pediatric patients. Of course, if you don't see pediatric age patients, this wouldn't affect you, but a lot of people do, a lot of specialties do, and I know in the state of Oregon specifically that we have to hold medical records for 10 years past the patient's last date of service if they're under the age of 18. Now, it gets a little fuzzy, and I haven't looked it up in a while, but people used to think it was 10 years from their last date of service. I've also heard that it is 10 years from when they turn 18 that you have to hold the records. So it's sometimes hard to find that information, and this was a while ago. I haven't had to look it up since then, and I'm sorry I didn't look it up before this video, but you want to make sure it's clear. So to err on the side of caution, we just decided to hold all pediatric records 10 years after they turned 18, no matter their last date of service, if they were still minors at their last date of service. If they became adults while under their care and they stopped being seen at 19, 20, 21 years old, then we just followed the regular 7 years. So in Oregon, it used to be, I haven't done this in a while to be honest with you, but it used to be 7 years, just like Medicare, 7 years. And to be honest with you, we just erred on the side of caution and just kept it 10 years. It was easy to remember. And so every 10 years, we would just purge the last 10 years of charts that weren't ever used by patients. And that's when we had paper charts, and it was really hard to store and find, areas for them to be stored securely, because it's PHI, so it's a whole nother realm of security that you have to make sure. And if you don't have the storage space in your physical building, which we did thankfully, you would have to hire a storage unit that's specific for medical records to make sure that you have the right security, so there's no chance, or a lower chance, of HIPAA breach, I should say. So now with medical records, it makes it so much easier if they're electronic, because it's a lot easier to obtain them when you need to, retain them for as long as you need to, and it doesn't take up physical space. Now, the cloud space or the server space or wherever they're stored is a whole nother, topic and a whole nother expertise, if you will. You'd have to talk to a tech person or whomever is storing your records for you, and your backup records, of course. But, that's just a little bit of convenience when it comes to the electronic records, as the physical space isn't taken up and you don't have to pay, for a physical storage unit. You might have to pay for extra storage on your cloud or some type of electronic device, but, that's a whole nother separate topic, like I said. But you do want to make sure for the electronic records, you're not only keeping the original medical records and billing records, but you're also keeping those backups that you're required to have by, HHS and everything. In case something were to happen to the original files, you have to make sure that you have backup files. So they both need to be stored for the same amount of time in case you can't get to your originals, you have the backups. Now, please remember that this isn't just the medical records file for the patient. It also includes their billing records, claims, appeals, denials, anything that you have sent out to insurances, anything that you've charged the patient, that all needs to also be available. You want to make sure that it's easily accessible so that you can provide it to the requester as fast as possible as well. And if they have any questions, that you're available to answer those. I'm going to try to put some links in the description box of places where you can go on and find what your specific state requires in terms of medical record retention. So hopefully that will help you. And I'm also going to try to find a link for CMS so you can find what their requirements are as well. It's really good knowledge to have. Your office manager should have it. You should know it as the owner, and anybody that's in charge of administrative stuff should also know. One tip that I would suggest is if your state only requires 5 years and Medicare requires 7 years, I would err on the side of caution and just make it simple for everyone and make it at least 7 years of retaining those old records. And this is based on the patient's last date of service. So if one is 10 years and one is 7 years and one is 5 years or something like that, then I would make sure that you hold it the longest amount of time, because that means that you're covering all of them and you won't have any issues. It's easy to remember. You're not trying to go, ooh, what insurance did this patient have? Ooh, how old was this patient? That you can just make sure that you're following the same guidelines and everybody in your office is doing the same, and it's just easy to remember, it's easy to maintain, and it's just overall erring on the side of caution as well. If you have any comments or suggestions or questions regarding this topic, leave it in the comments below. Smash that thumbs up button if today's video was helpful. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Take care of yourself. Enjoy these last few weeks of summer before we head into the fall. Take care of yourself. Bye-bye.